Rome didn't fall. Rome dissolved. And that's far more terrifying. Because when something collapses, you notice? There's a crash, there's rubble, there's a date in a textbook. But when a great civilization slowly stops being itself, it's almost invisible, from the inside and the outside alike. That's exactly what happened to the most powerful empire the Western world had ever seen. And here's what's truly strange. We're still arguing about why it fell. Historians have counted more than 200 different theories. 200. Some say barbarians, others say corruption, others point to climate, plagues, economics, Christianity, lead pipes. Every version sounds convincing, every version explains something, and not one of them explains everything. But here's the real trap. We've been asking the wrong question. We ask, why did Rome fall? And in doing so, we already assume that the fall was an event, something that happened. But what if the real question is different? Why did Rome take so long to fall, even when it already should have? Because once you unpack that question all the way, the entire story flips on its head. Let's start with what everyone assumes they know. Rome was great, staggeringly great. At its peak, roughly 50 million people under a single authority. Roads, aqueducts, legions, law, trade, all of it running like one enormous, well-oiled machine. The Mediterranean wasn't a border, it was Rome's private lake. Nothing like it had existed in the Western world before, and nothing like it would exist again. That's the image we're used to. A summit, followed by a cliff. But here's the first crack in that version. Rome began to break down long before anyone noticed, and it broke down from within, not from blows on the outside, but from its own architecture. The 3rd century AD. Historians call it the crisis of the 3rd century, which is frankly the most restrained possible name for what was actually happening. In 50 years or two, from 235 to 284 AD, more than 20 emperors cycled through the throne. Most of them died violently, not at the hands of foreign enemies, at the hands of their own soldiers, their own allies, their own generals. Think carefully about that mechanism. To become emperor, you need an army. To keep an army, you need money. To get money, you either conquer or you tax. Conquests run out. Taxpayers revolt. And then there's only one option left. Mint more coins. Dilute the silver, make money cheaper. That's exactly what Rome did. Coins that under Marcus Aurelius contained 80% silver contained less than 5% by the end of the 3rd century. Money collapsed in value. Trade shrank. Tax pressure surged. Farmers abandoned their land. Cities emptied. The middle class, the Mari, the very backbone on which the Roman world stood, began to disappear. And this is where the truly terrifying logic kicks in. To protect the borders, you need legions. To fund the legions, you need taxes. To collect taxes, you need people who can pay. But the people are ruined. So taxes rise on whoever's left standing. They get ruined too. The loop closes. And there's no exit. What? Because every solution only makes the problem worse. This wasn't a catastrophe that arrived from outside. This was a trap Rome built for itself. Now, here's a question before we go any further. Do you think a different ending was actually possible? Could Rome have survived if, say, the right reformer had appeared at the right moment? Or was the system already doomed, regardless of who was in charge? Drop your answer in the comments, seriously. This is one of those questions where historians genuinely disagree, and there's no clean consensus. I want to know what you think, and if this story has already grabbed you, share it with someone who likes to think. These are the kinds of things worth arguing about with someone else. Like and subscribe while you're at it. You know why it matters. Let's keep going. But wait, there's more, because right at this moment, a factor enters the story that almost never gets the attention it deserves. The army. We're used to thinking of the Roman military as an unstoppable force. Legions, eagles, iron discipline. But by the 4th century, that picture had changed almost beyond recognition. Rome was increasingly recruiting barbarians into its ranks. Germanic tribes, Goths, Huns, not by choice, but because there were fewer and fewer Roman citizens willing to fight. And here's the paradox. Barbarian commanders were climbing higher and higher through the Roman hierarchy. They took Roman titles, wore Roman clothes, spoke Latin, but their loyalty, it wasn't to Rome as an idea. It was to whoever was paying them, or to their tribe, or to themselves. When Alaric sacked Rome in 410, he was a Visigoth who had spent years serving as a Roman military commander, a man who knew Rome from the inside, who had been promised land and money, hadn't received them, and struck back, not as some savage from the north, but as a decorated veteran who had been cheated. That changes everything. The barbarians didn't destroy Rome, they filled a void that already existed. And now, to what usually gets left out, or more precisely, left unsaid. The Western Roman Empire fell in 476 AD. Everyone knows that date. The last Western emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. End of story, it would seem. But here's what's remarkable. Almost nobody around them particularly noticed. No panic, no grand tragedy. Odoacer simply sent the imperial regalia back to Constantinople and said, "These aren't needed anymore." The Western emperor was just an extra line of bureaucracy. The real power had been gone for a long time. The real Rome died well before 476. That year was simply the moment everyone stopped pretending. And this is where it gets deepest of all. Rome didn't fall because it was defeated. It fell because it gradually stopped being necessary, even to the people living inside it. Peasants didn't care whose coin was in their purse as long as someone protected them. Local aristocrats were cutting deals directly with barbarian chieftains, bypassing Rome entirely. The church was building its own power structure and its own loyalty. The legions served whoever paid. The idea of Rome, one civilization, one law, one order, wasn't destroyed. It simply stopped being backed by reality. And an idea that isn't backed by reality at some point just evaporates. That is the real answer. Rome wasn't brought down by external force. Rome rotted from within, slowly, invisibly, through dozens of interlocking crises, each of which was survivable on its own, but together created a system that could no longer be repaired. The economy undermined the army undermined politics, politics undermined trust, trust undermined the economy, around and around, again and again, for 2 or 3 centuries. And here's the final thought, the one worth carrying with you. Rome was the first civilization in history built at that scale, and it was the first to run headlong into something every large system eventually faces. The more complex the structure, the more invisible its death. Rome didn't crash in a single day. It died so slowly that the people living inside it simply stopped noticing. They adapted, they adjusted, they started calling decline normal, and the most unsettling part? That's precisely what makes its story so uncomfortable. Not because it's about barbarians and emperors, but because it's about how great systems don't explode. They just quietly stop working. And the people on the inside are usually the last ones to find out.
You don't want to miss our next video, so make sure to subscribe.